Hey everyone, Paul Richmond here, and I am with my friend Denese Sanders at Open Ground Studios here in Monterey, and we wanted to make a little video today so that she could introduce you to someone pretty special. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
It's my father, Bill Sanders. He was a political cartoonist for 25 years at the Milwaukee Journal, and he was syndicated in about 50 newspapers across the country with King Features Syndicate.
I absolutely love political cartoons and illustration, and I just feel like that is such a way to kind of capture the pulse of the times.
Yeah.
So what do you remember from like growing up with him doing that kind of work?
Well, he had a little studio in the corner of our living room, which he worked at. You know, he had an office at the Milwaukee Journal that he went to every day, but sometimes he would get either not done with the cartoon or he would want to leave early and come home and finish it. I just thought it was really cool, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an artist today because I don't think I ever really doubted whether or not I would go into art, because that seemed like the only thing to do and the thing that was the best thing to do.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that it didn't come with a lot of stuff.
Well, yes.
See, he was extremely liberal. He started in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is where I was born, and then he moved to Kansas City Star, and then he worked there for 4 years, and then we moved to Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, the paper at the time was a relatively liberal newspaper, but over the course of his career, it changed hands a few times, and he had a lot of hate mail.
Oh, wow.
Because
okay.
his cartoons were so poignant, and he would go to the jugular to get a point across. And even some of the people who were fans of his work, sometimes he'd rub them the wrong way. But his opinion about it was that if he was doing his job right, he was going to piss off a lot of people.
Exactly.
Because the whole idea behind cartooning and editorial cartooning was being well informed on a subject and then making a really clear statement that has opinion in it. So one of his books that he wrote, which is called Sanders Cartoons, is just sort of a composition of all sorts of cartoons that he did up through his career, and the foreword of it are all excerpts of hate mail. And like I hope you and your family rot.
So were you aware of all of that when you were growing up?
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, he was celebrated, and he was celebrated across the country, and he was up for a Pulitzer Prize a few times. Seeing just how excellent he was at getting messages across, and
it's not easy to say so much with so little. I mean, I feel like when you do, artists that do big elaborate paintings, you can hide a lot in the details, but with something that has to just boil down to the essence of the message, that's hard.
Right, and so metaphor was huge, and I learned a lot about metaphor from him because I had him describe cartoons to me.
Okay.
Like I was like, I don't get this. Not only did I not know the politics that were going on at the time, but I didn't get what that meant, and so I think that's kind of been embedded in me with my own artwork. He met, I think, 7 presidents during his career, and those are going to be on exhibit as well, the photographs of him meeting those presidents and the caricatures that he did of them that are autographed by the president.
Oh, how cool.
And then also my father is in the at the very end of writing his memoir, but hopefully in the early part of 2017 it'll be released.
Okay.
It's called Against the Grain.
Nice.
And it's about his life being raised in the South as an only child to 2 relatively liberal parents, and having dealt with racism in a really deep way as a child, not understanding what the problem was because he never had that. He didn't have it modeled for him, and so his whole entire life he was against the grain of what was happening politically and in our society, and so that's part of why.
And it
comes through in his art.
How did he decide that this was what he wanted to do? Do you know?
He was a football star.
Really?
At Western Kentucky University.
Okay. He really could do it all.
And he drew little cartoons and stuff for the yearbook, and he thought he was going to be a sports writer. Okay. Because he majored in English, and that's what he wanted to do. And so, but when he went off to Korea, he was doing some writing while he was there. He moved to Japan, and my mom moved out there with him after he was done. And he decided he wanted to maybe go down that path of drawing for cartoons because he started seeing some and seeing what the power was behind them, and so he got his first job.
So was your mom political too?
She was actually really active in the women's rights movement and women's liberation. She was all over that. She definitely has become more and more political as time goes by. She has been such a rock for him. He would never have been able to do everything that he did without her and her support. And for me, I attribute both who I am as an artist to my father, but I attribute who I am as a community builder and someone who's able to create a safe, welcoming space because of the compassion and complete and total support my mother has always given me.
Did he develop all of the ideas himself, or was he ever told by the syndicate, like, you need to do this?
Nope, it was always him. Every day he would go to the paper and he would read 5 to 6 newspapers from around the country. He would determine at that point what was the angle that he wanted to hit. But the editor had to approve every cartoon that went into the paper.
I was going to ask, so did he ever make something that was like too much and they said, no way we can do it?
Yes, and he also went beyond the editor and had it published anyway.
Oh, I love it. He's my hero.
He was suspended for 2 weeks for that.
What was that? Do you remember what that piece was?
Well, I remember, I don't know if this was exactly that piece, but I know the one piece that he had done was about police brutality in Milwaukee, because there was a lot of abusive activity happening. I think it might have been in the late 70s or mid 70s.
That was one of the things that struck me looking through his art, is that so many of the themes are still so relevant today.
I've wanted to show my dad's cartoons at Open Ground Studios since I opened, because he's my dad, and he's getting on in years, and this is an opportunity that I have to do. And
yes, tell them about what you want to do. I'm excited.
Because this election is so huge and it's such a monumental time for women's rights and for the glass ceiling for women, and personally, I'm a Hillary fan, always have been.
Same
and
here.
I felt like if there's any time, now is the time. The cartoons that I have in my possession and that I sorted through about 2,000 cartoons while I was visiting them last month, I found that recurring theme that are themes that I find most hard to reconcile with our country, including women's rights, civil liberties for all, racism, gun violence that's just incredible, poverty and social justice kind of things happening too. So what I've decided my show is going to will be highlighting at least 3 or 4 of those issues, so you can see from 1962 to current time, the gun issue has constantly been there and it has never been fixed. And some of the ways that he articulated that again and again and again in the political administrations that were dealing with those is just hopefully going to resonate a little bit about now's the time to make some change. Unfortunately, because of his health and my mother's health, I don't think they're able to come, but we're hoping that we can get a big enough viewing of his work through not only my studio, but also the Democratic Center for Change is right next door to Open Ground Studios, which is again why it's such a great opportunity. They're excited to have some of his cartoons on display, some of the current ones about this current election, because even though he's almost 86 years old, he's at his drawing board almost every day. When he feels good enough to do it, he's out there and he's making comments about the Bush administration. He did a whole book about that while he was retired. And he's been working on this. And then I'm hoping that the Monterey County Weekly newspaper, who's an amazing paper locally in town, I'm hoping that he can have some of my dad's heavier hitting cartoons down at the Press Club, which is a new gallery and coffee shop and wine bar, blown up in really big scale, because it's a really big space, and that way they're going to be kind of in your face.
And we want to make this happen, and we need your help, right? So you have a GoFundMe page.
I have a GoFundMe page for this, and I'm hoping to raise $2,500.
We can do that. Here, we'll put the link right down here.
If everybody asks 10 people to put in $10 or $20, we can probably do this. And it's not for personal gain at all. I mean, my parents are living on a super fixed income, so if I sell some of his original cartoons, I definitely want them to get that money. But any
You're donating from the prints, right?
From any of the prints that we make, I'm going to donate all of the proceeds of that to Black Lives Matter, because to me that's the most important issue right now.
And so much of his work did address all of these things, but
always addressed it.
The racial ones are just so especially impactful.
He got a couple of awards with civil liberties for his work on racism.
So please help us if you can, chip in a little, and I promise I'll document it all here on YouTube, so that even if you're not able to come in person, you can see all of this awesome work. Come to the show virtually or in person, because I think this stuff is really important. When you look at art all the way back through history, I mean, some of the paintings from the Renaissance, those were the political cartoons of that time. I mean, that's how we understand what was going on.
Right, and one last thing is that October is Humanities and Culture Month. And if you look at what President Obama has written about it, it's quite an amazing thing that art has the power to transform lives. And that's one of the main reasons I started Open Ground Studios, was that adults really need to have access to that self-expression. And it's really this amazing opportunity to see how we can share our understanding of humanity through our experience of it, As artists, we get to do that, but people who don't actively create need to see that because it brings in, it brings in way more visceral understanding of our humanity when you see it in a piece of artwork than you do if you just talk about it.
It communicates in so many different ways.
Well, thank you for whatever support you can give, and if I end up not being able to do the big prints, whatever.
You will. They'll help us.
Okay.
Don't even, there's no backup plan. We're doing this. So donate now, help us out, and thank you guys so much for watching. Leave us some comments, subscribe to my channel so you'll be able to see more of this awesome stuff, and thank you so much, Denese, for sharing this with us today. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Hey everyone, Paul Richmond here. We have two options for president. A candidate who is qualified, experienced, and intelligent, and is that so many of the themes are still so relevant today. It's like people were, realizing that gun control and police brutality,
and
let me say that again. People were